This video is for students to listen to, practice, copy, whatever. Some examples of the oral exam for house and home and the questions about comparing different living situations, different arrangements. So first, if you're comparing, say, living in another country with living in Czech, so, let's say United States is a good example compared to Czech. And, in Czech, a common living arrangement in recent history has been living nearby grandparents. So having your mom, having your grandma, grandpa living either in your house or next to your house or something like that. In fact, it used to be that city houses, the grandparents would build a second level for their children, and the grandparents would live downstairs. So this was a common thing. USA, I don't know if that was ever really common. So living in the USA, I guess, you could be living in the city, and so expensive rent, probably, and probably living in an apartment house or an apartment building, something like that. And let's see, safety, you probably would worry about locking your doors and things like that, just being safe, especially when you read in the news about guns and everything. You could even be a gun owner in the USA. So some other things to think about would be, let's see, how about, in Czech, you could live in a village. In the USA, we really don't have many villages. The life is more like you either live in the city or in a small town with a bunch of other houses around. There's no sort of village structure, and we don't have squares like a city square. We have a main street, so that's more common. Life in Czech compared to USA, I guess when you're living out of your country, you might miss some things, like you miss your favorite food. Excuse me. But on the other hand, when you go to a new country, there's some new things you can try and interesting situations or experiences that you wouldn't get at home. How about renting versus owning? Excuse me. So if you rent, then you can't make changes to the place without permission. But on the other hand, if something is broken, you can just call the landlord to fix it. You don't have to fix it yourself. But if it's your house or if you're the owner, then when something breaks, you have to fix it. But you can make changes as you wish, usually. Renting, the landlord can give you notice that they're selling the place and you have to move, right? But if it's your house, you don't have to move. Renting, you probably have, often it's renting apartments, and if that's the case, you have neighbors everywhere, and you live in a common apartment building, block of flats, and there are some situations that you would have that you would not have if it was your own house. Like, you have your own house, you can do what you want out in your garden. You can have guests in your yard, in your backyard, your front yard, and hang out, and you don't have other people walking by. So maybe more privacy, in that way. Let's see, how about country versus city? Living out in the country, or living, in a rural area, usually it's quieter than living in a city. Often it's cleaner than living in a city, depends, but typically the air is cleaner, or you don't have as many people close together. So, like in the city, you walk down the street and there's people smoking cigarettes everywhere, or at the bus stop or something like this. But in the village, or even more so out of the village, like living alone, it's peaceful, right? On the other hand, maybe you want things to be close for like a shorter commute to work, or stores to shop to be close by. that would be more in the city, right? You might feel safer out in the country, I don't know, than in the city. So these are some things to think about. Being away from mom and dad, for example, living in the dormitories compared to living home. At home, you have to do chores. Maybe they're arguing with you about things. Maybe you have an annoying brother or sister. Whereas living in the dormitories, you can be away from those things and have more freedom, more independence. But on the other hand, the negative side, living in the dormitories, you might miss your mother's or grandmother's cooking. You might not like the school cafeteria cooking. You might not have as much money to buy things. Doing laundry. Your mom probably does some work like helping you with your laundry at home, but not at school. You might have to wait with some dirty clothes or something. Your roommate could be a pig or loud or selfish in some way, messy at school, in the dormitories, or if you live with a roommate or a housemate. But on the other hand, at home with your parents, you might have to worry about a brother or sister being that way, but if not, then that's good. Describing living with the grandparents, well, they could help you with things. They have more time if you live with grandparents, or if they live nearby, they can watch your children for you. They can do things with you, help you with homework. They could, but on the other hand, you might have to help them if they can't move around very good, or with in the garden or something like this. But it can be really nice having grandparents there, and you might miss them when they're gone. So without them, you might be more lonely. You don't have as much say kolache or something, right? Living with pets versus living without pets. Well, without pets, it's an easier life. Whereas if you have a dog or a cat, you have obligations, responsibilities. You have to, help them. You have to feed them, clean their poop, take them for walks, whatever. Take them to the vet for shots. If you have a holiday or a vacation, you have to make arrangements so somebody will feed them. Whereas without pets, you have the freedom to not care. You don't have the responsibility to do those things, and you can have more freedom to travel without making arrangements. Siblings, they can be annoying. On the other hand, it's somebody to play with, to share time with it. You could get lonely without them. Only child doesn't get jealous. Mom and dad are only buying for the only child, whereas with the siblings, they have to share things more often. So you have these kind of relationships, arguing and fighting with siblings, but then maybe you get closer when you get older. That's about it.